Okay, this is a new one for me, getting it with somebody who's talking about money, but today in the studio we have J.C. Turmel. How are you, John?
I'm fine.
So, well, I guess we can start with the fact that you're in the Guinness World Book of Records. Is that where we're going to be starting?
That can't hurt. There it is. First time the 1997 edition under the royalty and government page. And there it is, most elections contested. Since 1979, independent candidate John Turmel, the engineer of Nepean, Ontario, Ottawa, has contested 41 elections at municipal, provincial, and federal level. In 93, he founded the Federal Abolitionist Party of Canada. And now, yesterday, I registered in the Ottawa mayoralty, and after the Joe Clark by-election and the Dundas by-election, this now makes number 51.
Now, why is it you're into running all that? What is the point you're trying to prove here?
Well,
or is it just to push your cause?
I promote this software, okay?
Okay.
21 years ago, when I first got involved in politics, I'm a professional gambler. I got an electrical engineering degree at Carleton University, and in the last year they started the mathematics of gambling course, and I took it. And you know, all my friends, when we gambled, used to call me the engineer, and that's why this cap's been so useful to me. But, so anyway, I got tired of, being prosecuted because I wanted to gamble. And so I ran for Parliament to legalize gambling and other dishonest crimes. And at that point, they asked me about inflation and unemployment. And I said to myself, how come the chips from my poker bank are always the same value? And how come the coins in my pocket lose their value year after year? The hardware is the same. And I said, well, how come these lose their value and these retain them? What's going on? Must be a software problem with how they're put into circulation and taken out of circulation. So I did an analysis, an engineering analysis, which you can find at my webpage.
And what's the address of your webpage?
cyberclass.net/Turmel, World Wide Web. Or use any search engine, Alta Vista, Yahoo, John Engineer Turmel, and it'll bring you to my page. And I do a mathematical analysis there, which explains that interest rates are the only difference between the two money systems. When you take poker chips out of a bank, and you put up your collateral, there is no charge. Now, there's service charges when you're in the game later, rake-off fee, that kind of stuff, but there's no charge to get the poker chips to liquefy your collateral. When you go to the Royal or the Commerce or the Nova Scotia and you put up your collateral and they give you chips, you now have to pay interest. And that has a very interesting effect on how the game is played because mortgage comes from the Latin mort, meaning death, mortuary, and gage meaning gamble. So when you see them peddling their mortgages out there, those are death gambles because it's impossible for everybody to borrow 10 and for everybody to put back 11 when they only printed 10. And that means that it's like musical chairs, said Keynes the economist. At the end of the game, everybody knows someone's going to get knocked out. Well, it's the same thing with everybody who buys their house on a mortgage. They all borrow the 200 grand, pay for the house, and they all hope to come up with the 300, 400 grand over the next 20 years, while people get knocked into foreclosure all around them. So mortgage is probably the most evil function in history for creating poverty, because the minute you sign on the dotted line, I promised to put back 11 when I only got 10. Imagine you're all alone on an island when you sign this, and you can't get some of your neighbors' money to pay 11. Well, all of a sudden, that's the kind of predicament that you're caught in. You're going to lose whatever you pledged someday, and as long as they got a bunch of neighbors who can slug it out and some keep surviving, it sort of hides the reason for why so many people are getting knocked into poverty. So I did more research. I looked into the holy books, the Bible, the Quran, Old Testament, New Testament, and I found saints everywhere, and they all keep saying, do not lend your money at interest. That's Jesus, Gospel of Thomas 95. And Nehemiah 5:10, let the exacting of interest stop. And Muhammad, give up your demand for usury. So you got the good Muslims, the good Christians, and the good Jews who've all got something to agree on, that interest is bad, and wouldn't it be nice if we could have an interest-free system? Well, now we can. At the United Nations, you've all heard of the Millennium Summit that happened? Maybe you've seen this picture in the newspapers of the class of 2000, the greatest gathering of world leaders in history. And Clinton was there, Chrétien was there, princes, all sorts of high-powered royalty and government were there. And if you look on the inside, I was there too. Now, of course, you got Kofi Annan, Fidel Castro, Tony Blair, Prime Minister of Britain, and Yasser Arafat, and Ehud Barak of Israel, and the President of China, and the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and President of the United States, and John Turmel. I'm the only one of the protesters at the Millennium Summit who managed to get his story out. And there is the sign which says, Jesus, Muhammad, Nehemiah said, don't lend money at interest. Now, what's interesting is the other side of the sign. The other side of the sign...
John's actually going to show the sign that was there. Both sides, I hope.
The other side of the sign that shows in this newspaper, that they didn't show, says UN Millennium Declaration C6. Interest-free Unilet's Bank. There is a proposal at the United Nations to set...
Flip side, John. Let's see the flip side.
Oh, this is the Jesus, Muhammad.
Get it in the picture, get it.
All right, there we go. Jesus, Muhammad, Nehemiah said, don't lend money at interest. And that's the picture they showed here in the New York
Okay.
Times,
Yeah.
which was the
Well,
scary
John,
report.
if okay, now suppose we do embrace this thought, and I tend to agree on you with it, but how would it make society a better place?
Well, just imagine I gave you an interest-free credit card. And you could cut a check, you have a checkbook too, and you could pay off all your interest-bearing debts. Now, you'd end up with a stable number. And after that, every payment you ever made would go against the principal, and you'd eventually be out of debt. So, Jubilee 2000, these people who want to cancel the debt, that's charity. That doesn't work. We have to cancel the growth of the debt. And I keep trying to explain to them, little poem. I'll pay my debt for army and police to handle strife. I'll pay my debt for doctors and nurses who protect my life. I'll pay my debt for all engaged repairing road and sewer. I'll pay my debt for social servants helping out the poor. I'll even pay my debt for bureaucrats with no regret. But I object to paying debt for interest on debt. I don't mind paying for people's time at work, serving me, getting something for my money. But I don't want to pay for money's time, debt service. And that's the only part of our government's budget that we're being robbed over because we get nothing for it. So how is this going to help? Well, all of a sudden, governments, let me give you an example. There will always be enough currency to put everybody to work who wants to work. Full employment, okay? You're told that can't happen by the economists. They're brainwashed. Errors in economics, they call it a science, and yet their measuring unit, the dollar, moves. And there's nothing as stupid as trying to measure something with a rubber ruler. But economics, they use rubber rulers, and they're ruling the world, telling us how much money we got. So anyway, forget what economists say, and understand that interest-free banking works just like poker chips. And King Henry I of Britain, grandfather to Richard the Lionheart, King Henry I in 1100 started up the English tally system. And this was a perfect national poker chip system that couldn't be counterfeited. Smart man. He took himself a stick of wood and he printed 1 pound of gold on it. Then he split the stick in two. This half he kept in the treasury, and this half he paid the 1 pound of gold poker chip, the king's poker chip. And what do you do with it? Well, at the end of the year, he says, how much have I spent out in the upkeep of the realm? And they say 2 million tallies worth of gold. And he says, well, that's a tax, everybody. You all owe so much. Now bring back your tallies, pay for it. And boy, those grains, those wood grains better tally up. And And that's where the expression to tally up comes from, the most famous government interest-free banking system ever invented. And it worked, couldn't be counterfeited. King Henry I, England, the only really smart king they ever had. So, or queen. All the others, they've been in hock to the loan sharks throughout all of history and taxing us to pay them interest. Now, I have a very short little poem to do for you, another one. And it explains the scam of interest, okay? Now, when you were little, did you ever dream of printing cash, filling up your wallet with some money in a flash? Creating money accurately means to have the plates. The stamping of some paper into notes best demonstrates, or stamping metal into coins, or blips computerized into your bank account deposits. Checks now authorized. So whether paper, metal, volts of electricity, to have the plates is printing money absolutely free. Now, if you printed it to spend, the others would bewail. They'd call it counterfeiting and they'd send you off to jail. But what if government would let you print it up to lend with only what you can collect in interest to spend? If you can print and lend 1,000 out at 10%, you'd make 100 interest on printing that you lent. But if you could print up and lend $1 million out, you'd get an extra $100,000 for your fee on debt. If government stops using its own plates and comes to you, 1 billion printed nets 100 million revenue. With all Canadians being taxed to pay you interest, of all the scams in history, to have the plates is best. Though never spending, only lending, riches do await to all who with the plates become loan sharks to the state. And though to join the few who thusly profit we might dream, wake up to see we're all the victims of this greedy scheme. Though governments of old, King Henry, had treasury run money plates, and Abraham Lincoln, without the interest to middlemen at rip-off rates, most governments today to banking industry have lost control of money plates, so interest is now a cost. Right? All government budgets to service debt in 99, Canada's request, $320 billion paid in interest. Federal, provincial, municipal, personal, commercial. We're taxed over $1,000 each per month to pay for interest the holders of our plates they gave away. So we abolitionists, and that's the name of my party that wants to abolish interest rates, want to get the plates back from the private banks, the Royal, the Nova Scotia, the guys who create the new money, and have Treasury create the money for a printing charge only, and thanks, an interest-free loan. So would you agree, well, and of course, I would also recommend that everybody get a $1,000 monthly dividend, as if you owned a share in the incorporated state, an income guaranteed for life, no question, no debate. So right now, all government levels are lifting $1,000 out of your pocket every month to send to the rich families who own the banks and they're licensed to make money and loan shark it out. All we got to do is get the license to loan shark back from the banks, have Treasury create the money, and then all that interest, without changing taxes, all that tax money that's being sent to those banks, we intercept the Brinks truck, divvy it up, give it back to ourselves as a dividend. So do you understand where your $1,000 per month dividend would come from? Right now, they're taxing it from you to send to the bank families who got the plates. And if we get the plates back, we don't have to change the taxes, but we can give you that interest that used to go to the bank families. So your national dividend is going to be getting the taxes back that would have been paying the interest. And that's what I stand for. I hate interest rates for that reason, but there's worse. Interest takes from the poor to give to the rich. The rich don't need it. They got more than they can use already, and they just keep getting more. So to them it becomes a game of who can amass the most, even if it results in a lot more people having not enough. So interest is the reason they're all in there fighting this game to try and, well, it's like musical chairs with money. Did you ever, when you played musical chairs, most people have was half. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We go around the thing until it stops and you race for your chair. But there's never enough chairs. Always a shortage of at least one. Just like your mortgage, musical chairs is a death gamble too. Now, did you ever stop to help your little sister get on her chair before you went looking for yours when the music stopped? No, because that's not optimal strategy. Charity doesn't work when you're playing a death gamble. Greed does. Looking out for number one pays off when you're playing a death gamble. So when I say, hey, we could fix the world by getting rid of the death gamble and adding equal number of chairs, people say, no, people's brains are gone, they're evil, they're greedy. And I'm saying that those are symptoms caused by the lack of the chair or the lack of sufficient money to pay all the debt. And yes, if we equalized the money with the debt like a LET system, every debit has a credit in a LETs. You can't ever have an imbalance. And this one here, debt grows by itself. You borrow a $100 bill at the bank. You put it in your wallet, walk around a year. When you come back at the end of the year, they go, hey, you owe us $110. And you go, well, the $100 bill didn't grow. What am I supposed to do? Go knock out a neighbor, get 10 out of him. And that's how you play death gamble. And in
That's a dirty game.
it is.
Can I get you to talk a little about your gambling career? This, I'm sure a lot of people will be interested on an easy way to make a buck.
Well,
Or maybe not that easy. I'm sure you had to spend a little bit of time. But you've got some mathematical formulas, or
yeah.
do you have the James Coburn video and
Well,
beating the slots and stuff like that?
From what I've seen, don't forget there are strategies to minimize your losses at slots, and all these strategies work upon the principle of getting overlays and avoiding underlays. Typical example, there are 44 cards out there. I have a inside straight draw. There's a 4 and a 5 and a 7 and an 8, and I need a 6. There are only 4 sixes out of 44 cards. 40 times I'm going to lose, 4 times I'm going to win. 10 to 1. Now the point is, if there's only $8 in the pot, I'd be stupid when he makes it 9 to call, because that's an underlay. In the long run, I'm going to lose 10 units, and when I do hit, I win back 9. It's negative. But if there's 15 bets in the pot, now I must call, because I'm going to lose my $1 10 times, but I'm going to win 15 once for a net profit of 5 per 11 plays. So basically, that is the essence of professional gambling, catching the overlays and avoiding the underlays. And
Isn't it always with the house they're going to have the odds? Their odds are always in their favor. So
well, that's not true in blackjack. I was a professional blackjack card counter for several years in the early days when, the rules were better. They have since made the rules tougher, and they will throw out blackjack card counters so that it's not a way for any man to make a professional living anymore. Poker is the only place where you will find professional gamblers these days. I can't believe there are any professional blackjack players left.
is there any gambling games that you won't touch, like the slot machines or Keno or
well, again,
or
you see, the point is
649?
sometimes the slots casinos give certain promotions, double on the royal flush, which turns that into a positive expectation, and you should be in there throwing your money in as fast as you can. So you never know when it'll be a positive expectation. You have to be ready to jump on all positives and avoid all negatives. And that's basically all there is to it, except that in the game of stud that most people play in Ontario, in the world Hold'em, I've developed certain systems. As a matter of fact, my 4th year engineering project at Carleton was a computer analysis of Canadian stud. So, yeah, with 4 years as the teaching assistant of the course after that, I think it's pretty fair to say that if there's a professional poker engineer, a systems engineer out there, it's me.
Yeah, so John, what are the letters behind your name?
BEng, Bachelor of Engineering.
Oh, okay. And electrical engineering, was
Yes.
it? Okay. Now, you've been called an internet kook. No, you told me you've been on the internet for 10 years, so what kind of havoc? Are you spamming everybody, or?
No. I send to the usual 7 news groups of science economics, science engineering. Somebody started an alt fan, John Turmel, for me. But I know my stuff rubs some people the wrong way. I have Right now, like I was telling you.
What do you think of people coming out? Because I've run into this similar thing, and I've been finding it with the internet, like you got to promote yourself. You just can't sit there, else you're buried.
Well, you see, the
So,
point is, I don't have to promote myself. All I have to do is keep doing things to further the growth of Let's, which is pretty spectacular news. And a lot of people say, look at him, he's getting all that advertising, you know, using Let's to get advertising or publicity. But the point is, I have absolutely no doubt that I'm going to be known as the father of the worldwide Unilets. When you get an interest-free credit card, and you can
okay, there we
never
are.
have to
Okay.
never have
Now, where
to
do
need a bill date ever again, never worry about payments ever again, you're going to have
Okay, the $64,000 question, where do I get one of these credit cards?
Well, right now-
Do they not exist at this time? Is this
Well,
something
actually-
about 22nd century?
You can go onto the internet right now, and I have instructions at unilets@egroups.com. Unilets info, unilets-info at egroups.com. But if you go to Unilets, we'll send you there too.
Now, what kind
basically,
of credit card limit? What is
here's
it?
what you do. You will go onto the net, you will open a listserv where will be posted any transactions you choose to make. On your main page, you will list things you offer. You offer to make videos for people and stream them into the internet. You offer to do radio programs. You offer to sell them ads. And you will accept time currency where a 1-hour bill like Madison, Wisconsin, or Ithaca, where it's worth 10 American, is worth 14 or 15 Canadian. But you
So you're really going back to
track it in
the old thing of bartering,
That's right.
bartering your services, and that's where the interest-free
money. That's right, because money's usury has perverted the wonderful essence of barter.
Okay.
You know,
Okay,
why
so
are we
how would you?
importing
Okay.
tomatoes from Britain or from New Zealand when we grow tomatoes here? It's inefficient. And the only thing...
So would it be would you be called on, like for myself, to like put something into the bank, like you know, that others or myself I could draw? Could you give me an example on that?
Well, I went to Europe last summer, and I have a list of Let's systems and 700 connections in 45 countries. So I contacted Let's people in 10 countries, and I said I'd like to come to Europe, and I know that you guys intertrade evenings of accommodation at 5 hours per night.
The acronym LETS, can you give it to me again?
Local Employment Trading System, a system for trading.
Now, who invented this? Did you invent this, or is
I
this?
invented a similar model in '82. Michael Linton out in BC invented the Let's in '83. His was bigger than mine, so I took my cash and I threw it into his.
Oh, okay. So this is Michael's thought process?
Officially, Michael's the originator of the Let's system,
Oh, okay.
Michael Linton.
Okay.
And I'm the financier and consulting engineer.
All right.
Okay? And so I put in the resources, then I took off to talk about it in politics while he nursed the brood of little Letzes as they grew, and now they're big monsters all over the world. They've been endorsed by the Australian government legislation, New Zealand,
Okay, we're in
European Parliament.
We're in Canada here. Is there like a Let's organization here in Toronto?
Yeah, there is. As a matter of fact, I just happened to have brought along.
Okay, just 1 second, John. I got to queue up another.
Here's a Toronto dollar system.
1 second, John. I got it.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, we'll pick that up from, is there a Toronto version of the Let's system? Oh, you got some Let's money here too?
I
Or
got some Toronto dollars.
what do you print those up on your scanner? Can I, may I take a look?
No. This is Toronto dollars issued by the Toronto dollar system. It's worth $20. You go down to St. Lawrence Market, you can spend it.
Oh, okay. What, is this been endorsed by Mel or?
Yes, it has been
Oh, okay.
endorsed by mail.
Okay. Oh, okay. Tell us a little bit about this. This is cool.
Well, basically, you know, well, in this case, people use cash as collateral, okay? They bring their $100 bill and they get 100 in Toronto dollars or poker chips. And then the city can put that money into a bank and use the interest to help solve certain poverty problems. So
Now, what's
use
the-
your
what's-
alternate
what's the-
currency, leave your Fed in the bank and let the government or the charitable group have the advantage of the interest. You don't save or gain, but the group gains the interest. That's how the Toronto dollar works. But if they were to issue Toronto dollars, also not only for cash, but for IOUs of labor, then they'd be a lead system. And there are many lead systems, thousands. I got 700 with internet links at my site.
Okay, let's,
Toronto dollars.
Toronto dollars, okay.
And as a matter of fact, we have here, and this is being given out by the Toronto dollar system. By the way, this is their flyer, their Toronto dollars advertising.
Now, do you have any idea how many Toronto dollars are floating out there?
I have no idea, no. But the point is, here is a collage of local.
Is there an expiry date on this money, or?
I doubt it. Why would there be? But I mean, this is from Mexico City. This is from Kootenai, BC. This is from Madison, Wisconsin. This is from Nova Scotia, Indianapolis, Toronto, Ithaca, Great Lakes. That's Detroit. So the point is, Berkeley, Thread City, Brooklyn, Greenbacks. It's very easy for a group to all decide we're going to all create our own poker chip system. We're all going to lend each other 500 chips, and then we're going to list our skills in a directory and start calling each other up and paying each other with our local currency and leaving our federal stuff in the bank to pay the mortgage or the taxes or the power or the TV. But stuff like cutting my lawn and fixing my thing and doing this and all sorts of stuff that you can do locally with neighbors can be done through a lead system. So can big commercial stuff.
Okay, now if you want to start a lead system, who would you get proper, like a banknote company to print up your money?
Well, you see, the point is,
is there going to be a problem that you could actually have people counterfeiting your own?
Well, there are two facets. See, the point is, that is